As the Washington Post puts it, a visibly emotional Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy addressed the European Parliament on Thursday and thanked its members for their support throughout the war. Good afternoon, this is Henry Keane on UATV channel explaining hard things in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. We are defending ourselves from the most anti-European force of the modern world, Zelenskyy said. We Ukrainians on the battlefield are defending you. In introductory remarks before Zelensky's speech, European Parliament President Roberta Metsola urged European Union nations to provide Ukraine with the military equipment it needs, including fighter jets and long-range weapons.
We know the sacrifice that your people have endured for Europe, and we must honour it not only with words, but with action, with the political will to ensure easier trade and with the fastest possible accession process, with funds for your people, with help in reconstruction, with training for your troops, with military equipment and defence systems you need to win. And now states must consider quickly, as a next step, providing long-range systems and the jets that you need to protect the liberty too many have taken for granted.
Zelenskyy thanked the European Union for awarding candidate status to Ukraine early in the war, saying it motivated us to be strong and stay on the course. Metsola also told Zelenskyy in her introductory remarks that Ukraine is Europe and your nation's future is the European nation. It really is, since we spill our blood on actual battlefields for European values and ideas, and that makes us Europe, and European values only gain in meaning and fortitude. Zelensky's visit to Belgium followed his trip to France, where French President Emmanuel Macron awarded him the Legion of Honor for his courage and commitment. Zelenskyy met with Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in France on Wednesday and, probably to prevent Chancellor from any more Scholzing, urged that we have very little time. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said nothing is off the table after Zelenskyy asked for fighter jets in his speech to the British Parliament this week.
British Parliament, 2 years ago, I thanked you for delicious English tea. And I will be leaving the Parliament today, thanking all of you in advance for powerful English planes. By the way, it's almost 5 o'clock. God bless Great Britain and long live the King. Slava Ukraine.
After the United States, Britain is the largest donor of military assistance to Ukraine. It has committed $2.8 billion so far, according to a recent parliamentary briefing paper, and has pledged to match that in 2023. And 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers had come to Britain for training, and dozens more arrived last week to learn to master the Challenger 2 tanks that British government has promised to deliver next month. Going forward, training will be extended to Ukrainian Marines and fighter jet pilots. Yet, no country has sent fighter jets to Ukraine so far. Poland and Slovakia have both offered decades-old MiG fighter jets, but in transfers have become entangled in discussions among allies. Of course, no one asks me, but if I were asked, Henry, how do you feel about the fact that the delivery of modern fighter jets to Ukraine is delayed? I wouldn't know what to answer. On the one hand, it is bad. Damn bad. I mean, we are at war here with a militant dictatorial regime that wants to take over a European country, and it is no charity auction that you can skip eventually. No, you will have to take your part. Every single one of us, one way or the other. You are either with Putin or with civilization. There is simply no third way out. Negotiations are impossible because there is no one to negotiate with. Putin is a maniacal dictator, and to start any negotiations with him means to lose in advance. This is why Zelenskyy left the British Parliament thanking them in advance. We have no time to hesitate, and you, dear world, have none too. Zelensky's renewed appeal for military aircraft comes amid warnings from Ukrainian officials that Russia is planning an offensive that is likely to include the northeastern Ukraine of Kharkiv and the southern Zaporizhia region. The offensive is likely to take place this month, the officials said, as Ukraine marks 1 year since Russia's invasion on February 24th. While President Zelenskyy was abroad, Estonia's Prime Minister proposed a vaccine-like program to purchase military equipment for Ukraine. Kaja Kallas proposed using a system used by the EU during the coronavirus pandemic, where countries provided cash, but the European Commission negotiated with the pharmaceutical companies to make them lower the price. We should send a clear signal to the European industry, meaning military industry, of course, that they need to produce more, she said on Wednesday. Not everyone thinks that way, however. Elon Musk's SpaceX is moving to stop Ukraine from using its satellite internet service, Starlink, to control drones. SpaceX President Gwynne Shotwell said that while she was pleased the service had helped Ukraine, Starlink was never intended to be weaponized. Ukrainians have leveraged it in ways that were not part of any agreement. Well shot, Mrs. Shotwell. You and your boss, Elon Musk, remind me of elderly nuns who do everything they can to make sure no one finds out about their debauched past that led them to faith. Those Ukrainian leveraged Starlinks to protect their lives, freedom, their families and their children. Oh my Musk, go, turn off the internet. In a certain sense, Elon Musk, with his Martian-scale ego and absolute absence of any foothold in reality, is worse than Putin, since Putin is the obvious enemy. Putin came to kill us. Everything is quite clear. So we use any, and I mean any, possible mean to survive. Yes, even Starlinks, Ms. Shotwell. What Musk will do is not clear even to Musk himself. I think he's just bored. And if Musk will call the Pope, and they will call Elon, not only to turn off the internet to Ukrainians, but also to transfer all the information on how we use Starlinks to control our drones to Kremlin, he might agree. I mean, why not? Do it, because Starlink was never intended to be weaponized. You know, I just can't help it. I need to say it. I can clearly see Gwynne Shotwell walking into her house, and there is that, cliched rapist waiting for her. So Gwynne runs away. She has no weapons, since she's a peaceful person, just a notebook maybe, and so Gwynne runs through her spacious house and suddenly runs past Starlink dish. And she could have grabbed it and knocked the rapist out, but Starlink was never intended to be weaponized. Oh well, as an antidote to SpaceX news, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg met in Washington with top U.S. officials, including Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, and White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. We must continue to provide Ukraine with the weapons it needs to retake territory and prevail as a sovereign, independent nation, Stoltenberg said at the State Department. The Pentagon said in a statement that Austin and Stoltenberg discussed NATO unity and support for Ukraine during this critical time. I've spoken so much just now about the weapons, very modern weapons that perhaps you, dear world, have forgotten what they're for. And they're necessary for peace. Peace for the whole world. Ukraine is fighting for it, and Ukraine has a plan to achieve it. I have already talked about the 10 steps of the Ukrainian Peace Formula here several times, and I will not list everything again. But, we've been talking about the formula for months, and now it is finally understood by European politicians.
You boldly proposed a peace plan, a 10-point plan. For us, this is a very important basis for discussion, which should lead to an international peace conference and involve as many countries as possible.
Ukraine is a peace-loving nation that has never threatened anyone, and it is committed to maintaining peace. However, Ukraine is firm in its stance that it will not cede any of its territories and will stand by this position. The only way to ensure peace in Ukraine, Europe, and the world is to liberate all of the Ukrainians' occupied territories and restore Ukraine's sovereignty within its internationally recognized borders, the Ukrainian Peace Formula is a 10-point plan designed to strip Russia of its tools for committing the crime of aggression against Ukraine and to guarantee safety and justice for the international community for years to come. Russia's intentions are quite clear. It continues to mobilize, terrorize, and attempt genocide of Ukrainians, all while cynically claiming that it is willing to negotiate. It is essential that internationally recognized borders and sovereignty of nations are respected and never violated by anyone. The Ukrainian Peace Formula is universal and will bring security to the whole world.
We expect that our visions of the peace formula will be taken into account in the day-to-day activities of the ECE, in various formats and forums. First of all, we are talking about the work of all three committees of the Permanent Council: Security, Economic and Environmental, and Human Rights, whose sphere of activity is directly related to certain elements of the peace plan of Ukraine. Yevgeny Tsembalyuk, Permanent Representative of Ukraine to the International Organization in Vienna, in an interview with Ukrinform.
Russia, with its full-scale aggression against Ukraine, violates all security structures that were in use after the Second World War. Therefore, the previous security system just does not work, and it is worth developing and implementing a new one, so why not use the Ukrainian base? After all, the country that is at war will always be interested in a simple fact that the war will never happen again. For a long time, government surveillance of citizens was the subject of jokes on conspiracy theories, but if 20 years ago espionage technologies were imperfect, now they are becoming the topics of investigations in major international scandals. What evil technologies are the Russian authorities currently using? By evil technologies, we mean, first of all, those that threaten human rights and freedoms in particular and civil society as a whole. Such technologies are used, for example, to harass journalists, human rights defenders, political opponents, and other human rights actors, and to repress ordinary citizens. All it is called evil tech. Evil tech divides into 5 groups. Hardware 1, this use includes OSA, Operation Search Activities, software, electronic certificates, civilian software. Hardware 2, paramilitary drones, socio-tech systems, face recognition, social monitoring, online voting, social engineering is so-called troll factory. Kremlin has all of that. The question is how it uses it. Let me go back in time a bit to explain this hard and secret thing to you in simple terms. In the final days before the invasion of Ukraine, Russian security service began sending cryptic instructions to informants in Kiev. Pack up and get out of the capital, the Kremlin collaborators were told, but leave behind the keys to your homes. The directions came from senior officers in a unit of Russia's Federal Security Service, FSB, with a prosaic name, the Department of Operational Information, but an ominous assignment: ensure the decapitation of the Ukrainian government and oversee the installation of a pro-Russian regime. The FSB, the main successor to the Soviet-era KGB, in which Putin was a junior officer during the Cold War, has already been operating in Russia as an expansive surveillance and censorship apparatus, and Moscow's invasion in Ukraine has involved a large swathe of the security services. And it is exactly the FSB bears enormous responsibility for the failed Russian war plan and the hubris that propelled it. What I mean is not only you have to be a dictator and spy on your citizens, but also you have to be able to use this information. President Vladimir Putin some time ago ordered the Federal Security Services to step up surveillance of Russian society and the country's borders to prevent risks from abroad and traitors at home. Speaking on Security Service Day, widely celebrated in Russia, Putin said that emergence of new threats increases the need for great intelligence activity. Well, of course, new threats are probably Russian citizens' growing discontent. Discontent on anything, you name it, the economic disaster Putin brought to the country. War with hundreds of thousands of dead. A broken future for Russia for generations to come. It was Henry Keane on UATV channel explaining hard things in easy terms for the whole free world directly from Ukraine. Stay safe and tune for more.